TripActions. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Ram Bartov, CAO of TripActions. Welcome, Ram.
Thank you, Stephanie. Great to be here. Looking forward to chatting.
Yes, we have so much to talk about, and part of the problem that TripActions is solving is one that I feel like most professionals have experienced. It is the world of corporate travel. I know I have had some negative experiences in this world, and there are so many legacy tools and systems that make these processes painful. Can you lay out that old world of what these systems look like before TripActions came along?
So if you think about, or maybe I'll start the other way around. If you think about the world that we live in, we're used to picking up our phone and getting everything delivered to us. If it's a car, if it's groceries, if it's Amazon, anything, it's at the end of our fingertips, right? But there are legacy travel systems and legacy travel platforms that don't work that way. That you have to actually pick up the phone and call someone and have a back and forth on your schedule or your preference or anything like that. And I'm not talking about what happens when you need to make changes or something happens, because something always happens. Just imagine the difference between picking up your phone and pressing a few buttons, and within minutes you have all your component of your trip books, versus picking up the phone and having 15, 20, 30-minute conversations and then emails going back and forth. That's not exactly what I wanted. Oops, I need to leave later, which is very frustrating and very time consuming. And at the end of the day, why get a lesser outcome for the same price?
We've all known people that have been the employee to turn in all those receipts late, or there's discrepancies between what employees are allowed to spend and what they do spend. I remember years ago when I was first starting out as a teacher in public schools, they had such manual processes, and we all showed up at a hotel for a conference, and no one knew that we all had to cover the hotel up front. And so I didn't even have a credit card. I was up a creek without a paddle. That was like a traumatic experience.
And that happens a lot with, not only with, but mostly with entry-level employees, that they don't necessarily have the funds, sometimes not even a credit card, to cover when they travel. And then we ask them to travel, and maybe frequently, and they end up in the situation where they have to fund the company's operations with funds that they don't have. So that's a burden on them that you don't necessarily want to put on them. And the whole mechanism, I mean, not to date myself, but I still remember Excel files with receipts attached to them. I don't think, well, I still hear of companies that do that today, but I think most companies today move to some way of digital form. But we took it a step further, right? We put some AI into it, build really a really slick user interface where the user has literally needs to spend a second or two, or on not on some transactions, in order to have them kind of go through the flow, get reimbursed, and get recorded.
Nice. Can you tell us more about what TripActions is? What are the products that you offer?
Should have started with that. So TripActions is a travel management and expense management solution. We provide end-to-end your ability to book trips until you, throughout the support throughout the trip, and provide the platform to submit your expenses and get either reimbursed, or if you're using a corporate card, have it recorded in the ERP of the company. So being an end-to-end solution, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of features that you can add. For example, you could, when you provide credit card to employees, you can add a layer of on a trip or not on a trip, where you can, again, going back to these entry-level employees that we want to enable them to do their job, but we sometimes don't feel comfortable just giving them a credit card that they can go and charge things that aren't necessarily approved. We have policies on top of that that you can tailor to whatever your business wants, and you could create multiple categories, multiple groups, to enable them to spend what you actually want them to spend, and to even add that layer: are they on a trip or not on a trip? Because again, the systems are combined.
Yeah, it's so refreshing to think about how data that is traditionally just spread out all over the place can be so streamlined. You mentioned AI. How does AI play a role in this software?
So on the travel side, the platform will recognize it'll recognize your travel trends or your travel behavior. It'll know that um, when Stephanie flies from New York to Denver, she likes the 10 a.m. flight. So when you search, it will flag it. Hey, Stephanie, last time this is what you booked. Or it will say, Stephanie, 5 people from your company have stayed in this hotel. Because one of the things that happens, at least to me, when I go to a location that I'm not accustomed to, or even that I am, hotels. How do I pick the right hotel? I mean, they all look the same, right? They
Right.
all have the
You
same
never know.
reviews. They all cost around the same. Which one do you pick? So I think seeing, hey, 10 people from your company have stayed in that hotel in the last month. That's, for me, that's a good indicator that this would be something that I should look at. Um, when you're when you're submitting your expenses, the platform knows to capture from the credit card feed what type of business that was. And in some cases, so let's say you and I go out for lunch, Stephanie, and I swipe the card at the restaurant, the system will know that this was a restaurant because that's the information that comes through the credit card feed. It will know what time it was, so it will assume it's 12 p.m. We had lunch, but it will also capture that meeting from my calendar, and it will create an event exactly how it was called, Lunch with
Right.
Stephanie. And if, let's say, it was $70, and that's within policy, that's allowed to me, that transaction's been created with all the context, and it goes. It doesn't go to my manager because it's within policy. He said I'm allowed to do that, so why would he need to look at that again? It bypasses finance because all the information was captured. Why does finance need to look at it again? And it goes
Right.
and gets recorded into the ERP. So
These
there's like
integrations make so much sense.
no human intervention, because human intervention would add zero value here. Um, I, as the traveler or the user, all I did was, if it was over a certain threshold, and again, it's defined by company, by region, I might need to take a snapshot of the receipt. And that's it, done. And think of the amount of time that you've spent in the past inputting that transaction, the amount of time that your manager, which again, as long as it's in policy, they'll never have a conversation with Stephanie. They're never going to turn around and ask you that question. And finance, again, it's within policy. All the information is captured. There is no value of looking at it. So I think, we talk about in 2022, there is no value of anybody inputting information and validating it, because platforms can do that.
Yeah. And, time is our most valuable resource. You can't get that back. I love that this saves so much time. Okay. So we should dive into the incredible growth story of TripActions. The company started in 2015, it became a unicorn, privately held company with over $1 billion valuation in just 4 years. And that accomplishment was only, achieved by startups like Uber and Slack. So, Ram, you joined the company in February 2020. But before you tell me the story of 2020, can you tell me about 2015 to February 2020?
So I joined in 2020, and the period between 2015 and 2020, I read history in TripActions history books.
Yeah.
It came out of the founders. So the two founders, Ariel and Elon, they had recently sold a company. This is their second startup, and they were kind of sitting in a room most of the day, trying to think what's next. Because they were young, they still had their belly on fire and all that, and they wanted to do what the next. They wanted to deal with the next thing, and being road warriors and being people that traveled a lot, they were one of the ideas that they have was to solve business travel, because as road warriors, they were frustrated with the booking process, like we talked before, pretty archaic, even in the advanced systems that you see today. They were really disappointed with the support, and the expense management came at a later phase. But what really drove them